have time for lots of questions. And I'll stop sharing.
That was absolutely awesome. Yeah, I agree. I first of all just want to say thank you. I have a student who's actually going through the process, and one thing that a statement, and then I have a question, but the statement is that by going through the process, she was actually able to design a better experiment. So she's doing some surveys, and the surveys that she's going to actually put out there are much stronger as a result of thinking about what she needs to give to the committee. So the process of doing it first is important, and I think really helped strengthen her her research. So my question with that said is, so can students just contact you directly or just start filling out these forms directly, or do they need to get their mentor involved from the start?
Whatever they're most comfortable with. My preference is that they do the training needed for the type of research that they're doing. Get that training done first, because the training is very valuable about thinking about the research project and how you should design your research project, how you should approach the types of participants that you're going to have. It's very easy to use human subjects as our participants, but it's not so easy to think about how we have to inform them properly. And the training does a really good job of making sure that we inform them properly. We also have some sample consent forms available for people who are using human subjects on the IRB website. Those sample consent forms can get you started, but you still have to make them fit for the type of research you have. I've worked with students that have talked to a mentor first. I've worked with students who haven't talked to their mentor first. It really doesn't matter to me. And if they want to get started by putting an application in, I really like our new online system. I think our online application system has a much better set of questions. It's easier to work through. I think the way the questions are set up and designed, it allows the student to work through and attach attachments where they need to be. It makes it easier for the reviewers. At the very top of that form, they have the ability to add me as a collaborator, or add their professor as a collaborator, or add a friend as a collaborator. And then anybody who's a collaborator on that application form can help with, adding notes and reading through it and telling the person who's filling it out whether or not they need to make adjustments while they're actually in the process of putting it together. I can do that. I can look at it before they actually are ready to submit it. Anyone who is a student, when they submit their form, the first person it goes to is their faculty advisor. So students must have a faculty advisor in order to submit to the IRB. That's an absolute necessity, because it won't get approved without it. So, and then the faculty advisor gets a chance to review, make comments. They can send it back to the student for more revisions. And then the student can send it back to them to have it looked at again. And then the faculty advisor, when they say it's ready to be submitted, then they are the ones who submit it to the IRB for review.
Okay. So they can start either way, but they finish with faculty advisor. Okay.
Oh yes, faculty advisor always gets the last say.
Okay. So Dr. Reina, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes. I want to thank Dr. Broussard for the very informative presentation. And I also want to thank my students who are here to learn. And I posed a question that there is no extra charge for the student for the city trainings, right?
Oh, city trainings are completely free. Yes. We actually encourage professors to use them in their classes as part of their assignments if they want.
And if they are not student, if anyone wants to be part of that application, that person has to have that certificate too, right?
Yes, anyone who's going to be a researcher participating as a researcher in the research project has to have a training certificate. Yes.
And if they are not in the institution, there is a charge for that.
If they're not in the institution, when you use the online form, we have the ability for them to upload the certificate from their own institution. And we ask that they give us a list of training topics that they've gone through. And we'll look at that and decide if it's comparable to what we require. Because a lot of, I mean, any institution that they're at has got some sort of training requirement.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So are there any other questions?
Robin, I just wanted to add a little bit about what Dr. Vietna asked. There are people who are not affiliated with any institutions or research institutions or academia or universities. Can those people access City and get trained or complete any modules?
They should be able to access it and affiliate with us. If they run into a problem with that, have them contact me. My understanding is if they're doing research with us, if they're our researchers, that we should be able to have them trained. And in case y'all didn't know, Hongshu Lin is our IRB chair.
Yeah, I think we have people, our UL Lafayette colleagues, they have collaborators who are from institutions that do not necessarily have City affiliation. And actually they went through our system to get trained and they obtained City certificates from UL Lafayette. So just in case that you have collaborators who are not affiliated with any institutions that have access to City training, right?
One more question.
Yeah.
What is the procedure for faculty to obtain approval for the whole classes?
We have, this is a slightly different application process. If you go to our IRB website, there is a class research projects page. And on that, we ask that the faculty member fill out the faculty, the oversight page, and then each student, if you're having students do individual projects, each student would fill out the student research page. And then you're supposed to review that as the faculty and make sure that their projects are exempt projects. These are low-level, non-risky projects. And all of that gets submitted to the IRB in a OneDrive folder. And we'll help you set all of that up.
Can they publish that research in some?
If they're going to publish that research, we require the long form.
And I'd like to jump in here, and then there is a question on the chat, and that is if they're going to publish or present. So we have, for instance, an undergraduate research conference. And one of the reasons we were so grateful that Dr. Broussard was willing to do this presentation and have this recording available is that students who want to present at these conferences, as well as many national conferences, need to have this approval in place. And I don't think I'm wrong to say that, but it's not just for publishing, it's also for presenting. Is that correct?
Right. And if they're presenting, we are still allowing the classroom research projects form for presenting. But we've got to have an IRB member review it. It can't just be the faculty member review it. The IRB member, either in their department, or if they don't have one in their department, they can contact the IRB and we'll put someone in charge of reviewing those. But yeah, when it's going to be an undergraduate research presentation, when you said publication, I was thinking journal, but presentations are also considered publication. But if you're going to publish in a journal, then we would expect the longer form to be done because that's an appropriate IRB review for a publication. If it's an undergraduate research conference presentation, then we are allowing the shorter classroom research project. But if it's presented at a conference, please have an IRB member review those applications.
And that is
Not just-
Yeah,
not just a
that,
faculty member.
perfect. Thank you. And that's wonderful because that's a question that I know someone who will be watching this recording is going to want to know the answer to. So let me go to the question that was put into the chat. And this is from Crystal, and she is asking, would health data fall under human committee?
Yes, most likely, unless, of course, it's de-identified and in a public forum. Our preference would be that you fill out an application and let us help you determine that it's an exempt project, because the NIH does not like researchers making their own determinations. It's best to let the IRB do it. That way you won't get in trouble.
And I have to say that I have learned a lot about this in recent times, recent years. I've collaborated with people, specifically with the podiatrist. I collaborated and did some work with them and didn't realize that we really needed to have that approved, and that even someone from outside still needed to have that approval. So yeah, that it's really good to know all of these rules. And I think that the undergraduates who I know will be watching this, I know some of mine for sure will be watching this. I think the thing to remember is that if you're not sure, you have to ask. So, you know, I've been doing research for a while and I still sometimes have to ask. So ask first, do research second. That's the message I'm hearing.
Yes, please let us help you decide, because we would much rather take the time to review something and tell you you're exempt or that it's not human subjects research than to have you get in trouble for doing something and then later finding out you should have had approval. We have had people start collecting data and then the graduate school tells them you needed to get approval for this, and then they have to go and recollect data and their graduation is delayed, or maybe they don't even get to graduate because they decide not to continue on. You've got to get that approval before you start.
One more, let's see, we've also got a few more here. Is it also true for publicity available on secondary data?
I think it's publicly available secondary data.
Okay.
So if it's publicly available data, a lot of times that will be exempt, but it's best to let someone look at it and make sure that it's truly de-identified and that you can't figure out who the people are. With our current computerized world and the amount of data that is collected, it is remarkably easy to track people down or go back and into a data set and figure out who the person was, even though the name and their phone number and their address are removed. Sometimes you can still figure these things out. It depends on the type of data that you're looking at. And if it's data where you're looking at people in small towns, and if you have information like, I don't know, maybe religion, size of family, whether or not children were adopted, things like that could be enough to key in on a specific family and possibly even a specific person. You might even see that kind of stuff in school data, depending on what type of information you're getting, especially when you're dealing with small towns or rural communities. It can be easy for people to re-identify people. So best to ask is always my opinion. It doesn't take us that long to do a review. I mean, time-wise, depending on how busy everyone is, because the IRB members are all faculty members. And well, we do have some community members, but they are very busy people. They're teaching, they're on committees, they're doing a lot of things. They work in these reviews as they have time. So while the actual review itself may only take 30 minutes, sometimes they take 3 to 4 hours, depending on how complicated the study is or how many questions you decide to put on your survey. We do read all the questions. So keep that in mind when you're asking for your review and you're wondering why you haven't gotten your approval letter back yet. If you had 150 questions on there, your reviewer is reading them all. But I still believe it's better to ask and to have someone who is not involved in your research look at it, and someone who's very in tune with what are the IRB requirements, what are the IACUC requirements, what are the biosafety requirements. Let someone who knows the regulations look at it and tell you you're approved, or maybe you don't need approval. We'll give you the letter and then you'll be safe.
Yeah, Dr. Olivier wants to say something.
Thank you very much, Nirmal. I appreciate that. And this might not be applicable, the statement I'm going to make, because I haven't had a chance to read through the packet that was sent out today for the upcoming research conference. You know, I know that it's a packet that went out with the guidelines and so forth, but I'm thinking while we have a small number of people present, I'm just thinking, Sherry, about the possibility that either posting this link for the recording, you know, where students are going to see it, those students who are interested in participating in the undergraduate research conference, or even if any follow-up email goes out like this one that went out, to include that there, because what Robin is talking about is so important. And Robin, I loved your PowerPoint. I loved the levity in it. You know, it made it seem, oh, okay, you know, this is a little bit more tangible. So just a way of getting this out, you know, beyond. And I know you said, Sherry, that you knew some people who were interested in watching it, but it would be good for our faculty members to know that this is available. You know, Robin, as you said, it's so important to incorporate this into our classes. And Nirmal, who is in one of my classes this semester and one of my students, you know, knows, I mean, I incorporate city training into my classes. And even if I have a student who says, I'm using, you know, public documents, I don't have to do it. No, you have to do city training. You might not need it for your dissertation, but you need to understand, you know, all of the aspects there. So, you know, this right here could even be shared, you know, within a classroom. And if you wanted to, you know, you could always cut out like the discussion right now and just have Robin's presentation, the relevant parts. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and absolutely that we might cut out just this little part, but even the question and answer section will be there. And we have a link for the conference on the webpage, and we will put the link to this training on that conference page. And then the link will also be on our website for workshops. So all of the workshops we do are either online, so virtual, or hybrid. So we record even our face-to-face workshops so that you can go back and watch them later, because our world is becoming a more hybrid world. And so I'm very supportive of that. And Nirmal has become, you know, we all are AV specialists over here now. So, but absolutely, we will do that. And we encourage you to let people know that this is here. And yes, I think it's wonderful. I love the presentation and I like the questions we had. Because not everybody knows. And undergraduate research, our students are going to enter this place students, and they're going to leave scholars, capable, informed scholars. So thanks for helping us do that.
That's awesome. And I might just add one thing that I really like about our city training for the IRB, for the human subjects. They decided to incorporate a module on using the internet in your research. That's required for everybody who takes our city training. And I think it gives a very good perspective of things that you need to think about when you are using the internet as a resource for your research, and things that you might not normally think about, especially for our students who have grown up with the internet. They think the internet is just this awesome place that they can just go and take and, you know, use. And there are some wait a minute, stop moments in there. And there are some places where you need to respect people's privacy, and it talks about how to do that. So I really like the fact that we have that in our required modules. And the other thing that I like about our city training is that we have a huge list of optional modules that you can go in there and take completely on your own as you want, as it applies towards your research. There's some really, really good topics in there. And there's some topics that focus on special groups of people. If you're working with people that have mental impairments, if you're working specifically with small children, there's some very good specific on prisoners if you want to do prisoner research. We do have a lot of really good research coming out of our criminal justice department. People that are working with our incarcerated persons and working with people that are working to get back into the community, how to best help them become citizens that are able to contribute to society instead of take from society. So there's a lot of really good educational material within the city training. I don't want it to be a burden to people. We tried our best to make it appropriately short or appropriately long, depending on your perspective. But there's a lot of other good information in there if you really want to use it. So I'm plugging city training. And I might also say that we have responsible conduct of research training. Responsible conduct of research training goes into authorship problems, things that come up when maybe interactions between students and professors and that type of thing. Also very good training for anybody who's doing a research ethics class. So we have responsible conduct of research training available, and that's there's several different courses. There's one for engineering, one for behavioral sciences, and I think there's a liberal arts type version. I forget exactly what they are, but also some very good trainings in there.
All right, any last questions? Well, if not, again, one more time, Dr. Broussard, we thank you so much for your time. I thank all of you who joined us today. And for those of you who will be watching this in the future, we hope that the information you got was useful. We will post underneath the videos links to reach Dr. Broussard, and you saw those links also in her talk, so you can go back and check those out. And with that, I just wish all of you a wonderful evening. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.